Hello class, we are learning about lymphatic anatomy in this demo. So lymphatic system, lymphatic system has a simpler function, which is, draining excess fluid, etc. We'll talk about that. The simpler functions, and then it has a complex function. The complex function is referred to as the immune function. So oftentimes, when you hear this term immune system, this is not a separate system with its own organ, but rather it's the lymphatic system which is performing those complex tasks. So this is a system that's unique in a way that it exists for some simpler functions in the body, and it also provides some of the most complex functions as far as defense against intruder is concerned. So in this demo, we are focusing on the simpler function, which is lymph and its drainage. Okay. So lymphatic system. Okay. We are talking about lymph. So what is the lymph? Let's understand that first. Lymph is a fluid that's collected from interstitial space. Basically what we refer to as interstitial fluid. When that interstitial fluid is collected from the interstitial space and moved through lymphatic vessels and tissues plus organs. So basically interstitial fluid is collected from the interstitial space, and we'll talk about that in circulatory system. Interstitial space, from there when the fluid is collected, it's channelized via smaller vessels to larger vessels belonging to the lymphatic system, and en route this fluid also passes through some lymphatic organs and possibly some lymphatic tissues, and that's what we refer to as a lymph. Lymph drains, the idea is to drain it into venous system, so it drains into left and right. We already learned this, subclavian veins. Okay, lymphatic vessels. Lymphatic vessels there are three types of lymphatic vessels. One are the capillaries, lymphatic capillaries, which are around blood capillaries, slightly larger. Capillaries collect lymph from interstitial space. We are talking about microcirculation. From interstitial space. Then the second vessel, larger than capillaries, are lymphatic trunks, which receive the lymph from capillaries and then we have lymphatic ducts. Which basically ultimately receive lymph everywhere, from everywhere, and drain into subclavian veins. Oftentimes, students will confuse between duct and trunk. If you call a trunk a duct, that basically means you are altering the lymph flow. So in an exam, if you call a trunk as a duct, you don't receive credit because basically you just altered the function. You altered the lymph flow. Similarly, if you call a lymphatic duct as lymphatic trunk, same thing. It's completely out of place. Okay, ducts have certain locations, certain function. Trunks have certain locations. Trunks merge to form ducts. Keep that in mind. Trunks merge to form ducts. Okay, so for lymphatic organs, we are going to learn about, in this demo, we're going to learn about tonsils. We're going to learn about lymph nodes or lymphatic nodes. There are thymus and spleen for which I don't really have a good model. The textbook has images that will show thymus and spleen. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the several lymphatic vessels and lymphatic organs. So we are going to talk about tonsils, lymph nodes. On your list, you also have spleen and thymus. We can see tonsils, lymph node, and spleen in the model. Thymus is a diagram in textbook. Okay. So lymphatic trunk, we'll talk about that. Lymphatic duct, we'll talk about those. Lymphatic capillaries, we'll talk about some of those. And we are going to identify tonsils, lymph nodes, and spleen. Thymus, I'll tell you the location. So starting here, this is a sagittal section of our nasal and oral cavity, basically with the brain, then the nasal cavity and the oral cavity. Starting with the tonsils. Tonsils, basically there are 5 tonsils. Out of them, 2 are paired, meaning 2 pairs, 1 single. Okay. The single one is referred to as pharyngeal tonsil. Pharyngeal tonsil is present at the junction of the nasal cavity and the space within your throat, which is referred to as pharynx, hence the name pharyngeal tonsil. So right here, this is the pharyngeal tonsil, right there. Okay, the next one is palatine tonsil. There are 2 of those, one on left, one on right. Palatine, palate, corresponds to the oral cavity. So when you go to doctor's office and you are asked to open your mouth wide, they're taking a look at the palatine tonsil. So it's basically on either end of your, right where your oral cavity ends, still in your throat, pharynx, but it's right next to the oral cavity, to the palate. So it's going to be visible slightly higher on at the edge of your palate within your throat. So here you are looking at the right palatine tonsil. Always left and right goes for bilateral. Okay. Lingual tonsil is at the base of the tongue. So I like to use this kind of like a little description. Imagine you insert two fingers within your oral cavity, and then you reach the end of the oral cavity, you spread your fingers in V. Each finger will land on a palatine tonsil. You're sliding along the palate. Now, if you slide along the tongue and you reach the base of the tongue and you slightly split your fingers in a small V, each fingertip would be on a lingual tonsil. It's at the base of the tongue. So here is the location. You see that here? Basically, this is where you are looking at your left lingual tonsil. So you can ignore this left lingual tonsil. Here is the left palatine tonsil. There is only one pharyngeal tonsil. So there is no such thing as left pharyngeal tonsil. This is just the pharyngeal tonsil. So these tonsils trap pathogens that come through air, food, and water, and provide us defense this way. So that's for the tonsils. This is an image from copyright-free image on Shutterstock. Shutterstock is typically copyright-free. This is just to show you the pharyngeal tonsil. Actually, you know what? I'm going to skip it quick. Next one. Here is our lymphatic model. You have a large lymphatic model. Too bad you can't look at it. All you can see are the vessels, different parts of the vessels. Okay. So basically, I'll go over the names in a second. All the white lines that you are looking at, there are different types of small, not different types, but different small lymphatic vessels. So lymph is drained via all your body's lymph. Entire body's lymph is drained via one is a left lymphatic duct. It's also known as thoracic duct. And then there is a smaller right lymphatic duct. So left lymphatic duct is draining from all of viscera, both lower extremities, left side of head, neck, plus left upper extremity. Right lymphatic duct is much smaller. It's draining from right side, head and neck, right upper extremity, plus right side of chest. So here, the right lymphatic duct is basically draining from here, here, and here. right lymphatic duct. Everything else is left. Rest of the body, or should I say rest of the body? Rest of the body is lymph drained by left lymphatic duct. Okay, keeping that in mind, let's look at where this left lymphatic duct is starting from. So left lymphatic duct, I have this labeled image. Let's look at this here. Left lymphatic duct. So let's just look at the left lymphatic duct. This white large vessel that you see here, this, change the color right there. Basically, this is left lymphatic duct. You can also call it thoracic duct. So left lymphatic duct starts within the abdominopelvic cavity around the level of the stomach. This is your stomach. Okay. Let's enlarge that. So right here, lymph that are drained from the two lower extremities and the entire viscera are basically going into the left lymphatic duct. Let me see if I can see something where you can watch all of this. Okay. It's kind of hard to find a model that will show the image. So basically, these are the images of our lymphatic system model. So what you're looking at here, this one, this is the left lumbar trunk. Left lumbar trunk is draining from the left lower extremities. There is a right lumbar trunk draining from right and an intestinal trunk from the viscera. So two other lymphatic trunk that you can't see here basically are also draining the lymph together. So we'll find another place to look at those. So this left lumbar trunk right here, left lumbar trunk, right lumbar trunk here. And you see in the middle, this one is the intestinal trunk. You can call them lymphatic or you can just call them right lumbar trunk, left lumbar trunk, intestinal trunk, intestinal trunk draining from the viscera, two lumbar trunks draining from the two lower extremities. So lymph from the entire viscera and both lower extremities drain together into a flat disc-like lymphatic structure. We refer to that as cisterna chyli. Cisterna chyli. Thankful to a student who actually labeled this with an image and gave them to me a year ago. Cisterna chyli. So we pick up here. Right there, what you can see is the cisterna. Compare here. See that? The entire cisterna chyli with the some of the organs removed. Here you are looking at the same, but you got the hepatic portal circulation part. So this is cisterna chyli. Okay. From there emerges the left lymphatic duct. Continues on. We go over this here. Left lymphatic duct. Let me erase some of this. Left lymphatic duct, right here. Okay. So it goes around, basically below. This is the left subclavian vein. Recall, we already learned this. Left subclavian vein. So it goes behind the subclavian vein, makes a hook-like part and drains the lymph into subclavian vein, left subclavian vein. So where that hook part is, notice that it also has to receive the lymph from the left side of the upper head and neck and the left upper extremity. So here, this vessel, right here, this is the left jugular trunk, draining lymph from the left side of the head and neck, kind of coincide the name, internal jugular vein. And there is a left subclavian trunk. If you trace this from here, through here, through here, through here, left subclavian trunk. If I erase just the last part, see that. You can see the left subclavian trunk right there. Okay. So left jugular trunk, left subclavian trunk. These two also drain their lymph straight into the left lymphatic duct. This is why we say left lymphatic duct is draining from the left side of the head and neck, left upper extremity, entire viscera, and both lower extremities. Right lymphatic duct, compared to that, is just a tiny structure right here. This is the right lymphatic duct. I'm going to erase just this. So here, that's the right lymphatic duct, just this hook. You can also see the right jugular trunk. And let me erase this here. You can see it's not as clear, but you can see just the tiny segment here, the right subclavian trunk. Okay, so right jugular trunk, right subclavian trunk, together drain their lymph into the right lymphatic duct, which is this. So when you look at here, you can see the right lymphatic duct. You can see the left lymphatic duct as well, but not the other trunks. Here, same thing. You can see the left lymphatic duct. You can see the cisterna chyli. You can see the right lymphatic duct. You can see the left jugular trunk. You can see the left subclavian trunk. You do see the right jugular trunk. Subclavian trunk is not very clear, but here, right subclavian trunk. So these are the lymphatic ducts and trunks. We also have lymphatic nodes, commonly referred to as lymph nodes. Okay. So these lymph nodes, are everywhere along the lymphatic system. So while lymph is being drained by lymphatic trunk or duct, they end up passing through not so much duct, but through the trunk, they end up passing through these lymphatic nodes. The function of the lymphatic nodes is basically to filter out. There's lots of white blood cells. We talked about white blood cells already. These lymphatic ducts are, these lymphatic nodes are packed with white blood cells. And the lymph that's draining from the interstitial space, if there are bacterial or viral infection, toxins produced by the pathogens, dead pathogenic cells, their protein, anything that doesn't belong there. While they pass through the lymph nodes will trap these pathogenic microbes, alive or dead. They are toxins, they are proteins, and then filter out the lymph before it drains into the subclavian veins. Okay. So they are everywhere, but we don't name all of the nodes. But there are clusters of nodes present in strategic areas. Okay. Those are given names. For example, this is in the cervical area. So we refer to them as cervical node. They are named according to where they are located, area of the body they are located within. Cervical node. Here in the axillary area, axillary nodes. You can call these right cervical nodes because there are left cervical nodes that we don't really see. Right axillary nodes. Similarly, right here, we see the right inguinal nodes. And not left or right, but along the intestine, we have the intestinal nodes. Okay, right cervical nodes, right axillary nodes, right inguinal nodes, intestinal nodes. This is where the lymph is being filtered. As far as lymphatic organ is concerned, we can only see the spleen. Spleen is the leftmost superficial organ. It's the most superficial abdominal organ, period. That's why lymph gets damaged in car accidents more than any other organ. It's very close to the surface of the body and it's not protected via bones. Lateral to the stomach. So here is the stomach. Right there. This is the spleen. Where do we find the thymus? Thymus is superior to the heart, which is why you don't see it here. The entire heart has been removed. But thymus is also a critical lymphatic organ, which is present superior to the heart, attached to the surface of the heart actually. So when we have pig heart dissection, oftentimes we find the pig heart in pericardial sac with the thymus still attached to it. So we can't see the thymus, but we can see the spleen, we can see the tonsils. So here also right there is the spleen. So that's pretty short. Right here, what do you see? You see the intestinal nodes. You see the spleen. So that's about lymphatic system. You have a short list, and here is the demo of the lymphatic system.